Good morning, participants of the International Volunteer Camp. Today is the last day of our week's event, which is also taking place online, and we've been together for these 5 days. We have found a lot of interesting things regarding heritage preservation, on hard and soft skills, programs, management. So we have covered all the subjects that have been raised throughout the year, and today is the last day when we will make a summary of what we've been talking about this week. And our participants will also present their new concept blogs. And I would like to start with the section which is called Cultural Heritage and Volunteering in the World, Development Prospects and Barriers. And we are having guests and experts today, and one of them is Anna Kuzminych, a coordinator of White Iris Foundation. That's a charity foundation. Over to you, Anna. Thank you, Natalia. I hope you can all hear me, but we can't see you. I'm trying to fix that. You can't see me, right? That's sad. Well, yesterday I checked my camera and it was working, and right now I can't do anything. What do you think we could do? Probably we could go on working length, understand what's happening. Please share your screen and let's see what happens. Well, it works, but the camera isn't working. Okay, let's work the way we can. Oh, my video is on. Great. So, hello friends, my name is Anna Kuzminych. I represent the White Iris Charity Foundation, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude on behalf of our foundation and our president, Olga. We were invited here to tell you about the restoration of country chapels. We're one of the few non-commercial organizations that preserve the traditional face of the country. So we are really few, we're few and far between. Over the last 5 years, we became the 5-time winners of the presidential grant programs. We try to give a new lease of life to cultural monuments that are located in remote areas, primarily country churches and chapels. We believe that by restoring the chapels, we help support the country folks, and we also help to promote the economics of the district. I'm actually trying to switch the slides. So sorry for my technical issues. We can't see the presentation, but we can see you very well. I am trying to fix that. Your presentation appeared for a moment. Well, I can't change slides. Sorry for that. I'm trying to find out what I can do with this. Will it be okay if I share it like this?
Давайте попробуем отобразить. Я думаю, что видна. Да, видно.
Yes, we can see it.
Да, может быть, попробуем нажать с текущего слайда и попробуем попереключать. Мне кажется, все получится.
Let's try and enter the demonstration mode, and
просто развернуть.
can you just expand the window? I'm afraid I won't be able to change the slides. In that way, let us. You can see actually the state of these historical monuments, and also what people usually call these monuments are the dilapidated buildings. Of course, we need to do 5 things here, and we have a license for all of this. We have a license from the state, and we're in a position to do all of the works, including safety works, restoration works, working with volunteers. Quite recently, we have received a certificate of volunteers named after the Reverend Seraphim Sorovsky. We're actually quite inspired to work and restore the spiritual heritage monuments, and a great deal of our efforts is focused on developing volunteering movement. A few figures. Initially, 670 volunteers helped us, and they came from quite a number of cities of Russia. We arranged 7 volunteering camps, similar to measuring the average temperature for a hospital. Our people have a large heart, and just like any ocean, it never freezes. We bring our volunteers to a site in an organized way. We try to arrange transportation. Of course, we also arrange meals and accommodation. We also provide technical inventory, and also we provide means of personal protection. Often, our volunteers are unable to use a trimmer or a gas saw, electric saw, in which case we need to train them, and our leaders try to distribute people enthusiastic about it, and when they get their first training. So this is also something that helps you to boost your skills. So let us look at some of our projects, and for example, the Aksinino settlement in the Tula region. That's a small settlement where there is not even an internet connection yet. The people are few, but there is an excellent monument of the Russian carpentry, the chapel of the Savior. And on its dome, there is the kneeled figure of one of the saints, of our archangel bearing a cross. Volunteers were quite active and enthusiastic about going to this settlement because of that chapel. They helped us to restore a historical necropolis of this chapel. All of the facades have not only aesthetic but historical and cultural significance. and our volunteers tried to trim the necropolis and try to make it look tidy, not like a heap of rubbish. Other volunteers tried to clear the shrine of some duke. They helped us to clear the shrine from the debris, from stones, and actually that was a historical personality, and our volunteers helped us to restore the place. Uh, Also, we trimmed the greenery on the territory. And if you look at the last picture, you can see that there was a special activity on the territory of the cathedral. Because before, it was not possible for people to move around the cathedral. And after our volunteers cleared up the territory, the procession of the cross could be possible. Our experts also could actually access the cathedral and conservate it. Now the cathedral cannot be recognized. There is a lot of scaffolding around it, and the chapel and the cathedral was covered with a special cloth. Now neither humidity, water, or snow can penetrate inside and destroy the interior. There is some process of restoration going on inside, and quite soon people will be able to actually come to this cathedral for their spiritual elevation. We also offer creativity programs to our volunteers, and while we were working on sites, we were arranging recreation programs for volunteers. We brought them to a meeting with the Reverend, with the Holy Father, and we arranged bonfires for volunteers in the evenings, and there were songs and various contests. Let us look at a different project that was taking place in the Tver region. In the first picture, you see a beautiful cathedral named after Peter and Paul, built after the designs of the world-class architect. In this very village, we are restoring the cathedral of the Saint Alexander Nevsky, and our volunteers helped to clear the territory outside and inside, trimmed the grass. You can see that the roof collapsed inside, and our volunteers helped to clear that out. And thanks to their efforts, experts and professionals could access this monument, and conservation works are in progress there, and this monument has also been covered in scaffolding and special textile to prevent the atmospheric sedimentation from penetrating inside. And so quite soon all these objects will welcome guests. Let us go back to the Yaroslavl region, to Dokhtova settlement. We are providing a staged clearing and restoration of this monument. Initially, when we came to this particular site, we were surprised to see that there were huge trees in the immediate vicinity to the cathedral. So we had to actually remove the trees that were making the roof to collapse. And volunteers even instilled order in the surrounding park territory. So thanks to volunteer efforts, professionals can also access this monument, and there were people who brought presents. Some bakery, as you can see from the pictures, is a present to our volunteers. We're also providing master classes to volunteers and recreation programs. So we're lucky to have our volunteers. We believe that by getting our volunteers to know the history by bringing them close to the history, we teach them to take care of our historical legacy, and that's how we ensure continuity of our efforts. For us, it's important that the restoration process enjoys support of all the neighboring territories and people who actually live in those territories. We know that people from neighboring villages and settlements came to help with these projects when they found out that volunteers were working. Volunteers also help us to prepare the territories for conservation works. And at the same time, volunteers find it very inspiring. They are able to expand their contacts, to meet new people, to actually come in contact with the history. Because the majority of our volunteers are religious people, they find it very beneficial for them to do something spiritual, something related to spiritual life. Even people who used to consider themselves as atheists found out that they changed their attitude towards religion. Quite often we meet people who find it exciting to be able to actually touch the monuments of history. And among our volunteers, there are a lot of people who like traveling and unusual experience. And quite often, volunteers come in families. The forum, or we were also asked to share our experience about overcoming problems when we restore country cathedrals. Together with Olga, our president of foundation, we decided that problems are not existent, but there are certain restrictions.
We could have had more volunteering weekends, but we are limited in terms of finances. But Iris is having the events happening in accordance with the decree number 1828. So we have to stick to the regulations. So this decree currently does not allow the volunteers to work in the conservation activities or activities. Temporary roofs, working on some specific holes on roofs, closing the windows with wooden panels. So it's something that we can do, but we cannot do anything more complex, and we have to invite experts, even though the works are simple. Unfortunately, Currently, we don't have enough volunteers gathered. It would have been nice to not have just 2 to 4 active organizations for the whole country, but it would be nice to have volunteers organizations in every village. Now it's only 1% of people from our survey is ready to undertake the responsibility for volunteering activities, and this is a very small number. So how we are overcoming challenges, limitations, and barriers. Well, as for financial limitations, naturally, we are continuing in our competition for the presidential grants. We are suggesting amendments to important to get young people interested in preserving cultural heritage, and we need to carry out more awareness campaigns. And for instance, very few Russian people are aware that there is Rosmolodezh, or Russian Youth Federal Agency, that supports the young people who are active. So we are working on awareness ourselves. Recently, we had a press tour to Yaroslavl region, and bloggers and journalists were really amazed at what we do, and they are sharing this information in their accounts and in the media. And we work with our partners, and we plan to work with the universities, involving students in volunteer trips. And naturally, we are open for collaboration, and why? Iris is very happy to get in touch with new people, be it volunteers or whoever is interested. Except for volunteers who are good with some hands-on work, we are very happy to welcome soft skill volunteers and any volunteers. We need SMM experts, we need designers, so we are welcoming everyone, and we do hope that sooner or later the charitable funds and volunteering sector challenges will be resolved. Thank you for your attention, and if you allow me, I'll read out 3 or 4 quotes from people who took part in our activities. Natalia, 37 years old. Very warm welcome from the local ones, and a very nice temple that we have to update. It was very interesting to communicate with people who think alike, Oksana, 35. And nice to work in a historical building without religious suppression, and acceptance is something special about volunteering communities, because in modern active temples you won't find such an attitude everywhere. Also, Vladimir said that we want to keep for the next generations the monuments and the architecture. And while I'm here, I want to do something for the people. It is inspiring, right? And finally, Elvira, 25, said the following: for me, taking part in a volunteer activity is a way of traveling consciously and be part of something bigger. Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. We learned more about your activities, and there were some discoveries that I made myself. And I want to ask several questions from our viewers and from you. Firstly, do you collaborate with the School of Volunteers Heritage, Наследие? Not yet, but thanks to your name in the school, probably we'll start collaborating, because it's really interesting, because they train in refurbishment and they run master classes of how to work with wood and so on. And yesterday we had Dmitry Tuzov who was talking about that. I think what you do is similar, and I think a really cool project can happen that would help you achieve your goals, and there will be even more nicer feedback. Also, what's your attitude to the new buildings? Are you for so you are for preserving the old ones, but what's your attitude towards new? We ask this question. We get to hear this question all the time. Of course, we are for the new buildings appearing, but the old ones is the sacred. They are the sacred places and worshipful places, and we are welcoming the new generation because we can show them what real culture is. Because old temples, they're single and unique masterpieces, and the new modern churches and cathedrals are built according to a regular scheme. And restoring an old place requires more money, but still we are mainly about focusing on restoring the old ones. And now the question is from me. Hopefully it'll be interesting for everyone. So how do you apply to take part in your event as a volunteer? It's very easy. The phone number of the head of White Iris is published in all of our social media. It's very easy to find us. You just introduce White Iris fund in Yandex and will be there. So you can contact us through the phone, through email, any kind of contact will be good. Another question from our viewers: how often do you run different projects? 3 to 4 a year. Well, this year we had 5 volunteering weekends and 1 camp. But indeed, the lady is right in asking that, because it's very labor intensive. But the temples feel well after that. We've mentioned this project several times. So we had Samalawa Youth Camp. It's a camp in Samalawa village where Alexander Nevsky's memorial was being built, and culture volunteers for 10 weeks have been living in the village, working with locals, restoring historical cultural heritage sites. And they were working with objects which were of cultural value. They were working with museums and so on. And there was this request of restoring the church. Unfortunately, back then we didn't get this idea that we should have collaborated with you. I think it would have been logical to get you involved, because there was this request from the village. And since we plan to have this camp annually, it would be nice to invite you for next year. So it's an invitation for next year to collaborate. Thank you. Also, we have a number of questions more. How did you happen to get into the sphere? I'm used to Olga Shitova, our director, getting there, and she has an interesting journey. She became an economist, and then she started taking part in volunteering activities, and she was so interested in that when she saw the temple picture of a temple on Facebook, she decided to create her own foundation. As for me, I've been working there for 6 months only, or already, and it was quite an intensive time. Before that, I was working as a journalist. I'm a philologist, a journalist, an editor, and I've been working in the media for 22 years. And recently, I was writing. So I was writing novels and was taking part in competitions. And I was working in a newspaper, and back then I was writing articles on charities, on people who need help. We were collecting money for a child who has cancer. And in several years' time, this girl comes to our newspaper, having graduated as a journalist. So she's overcome the disease, and feeling that, seeing that, it's amazing. Then I was writing about the girl who a Down syndrome girl, and she didn't have an apartment, and together with mom, they were placed in a very dirty apartment, and the apartment was not acceptable as a dwelling place. And I wrote a very critical article, and our authorities read, and they have received and they refurbished the apartment for them. And then we've been collecting donations to treat Zamil Sagitov, ex-Chernobyl guy, and he was coming to the social services, but they were saying that you have to wait for several years and so on. But I'm also in the convent, so yeah, I'll be waiting. I'll be creating my own foundation. It sounds very similar to my journey, professional and then personal. Yeah, it's really important. Thank you so much, and I want to give floor to Roman Bogatyrov, who's the regional coordinator of cultural volunteers from Oral region, and we had him as an expert in this event. And this subject of barriers and limitations is very important for him. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I missed a large part of Anna's speech. Hopefully, it'll be possible to watch it. And we need to understand what kind of barriers there are. But for that, we need to understand what kind of potential we have. And I'll be giving you examples. So, as we remember, in Russia, we have the Society for Preserving Monuments and Cultural Objects, but it's no secret that this society has been there not only in Russia, but in other ex-Soviet countries. And one of the elements of overcoming the barriers and limitations as part of improving international collaboration is establishing the contacts with the organizations who are similar in their activity to what we do now. Establishing contact with the Caucasian, and it's no wonder that we are focusing on international collaboration, because the most topical barrier for all of us is politics, and naturally COVID-19 pandemic that covered the whole planet. And it prevents not only the volunteering, it prevents pretty much everything. We switched to online, and it's not easy to overcome the barriers to visit other countries. And we've been meeting for the second year running online. But I think that online cannot replace the real communication that allows to volunteers to interact. And online is good. Online is good in reaching out, but live communication, somehow. I'm supporting such people, and I'm a member of the Commission of Public Chamber, the Russian Federation, the respective chamber that works with the limited capabilities people. And in Raw region, we have run a number of roundtables dedicated to volunteering for people with limited capabilities, and how can we get them involved in volunteering activity, because it's and heritage volunteering school that is run together with other organizations that is out of reach for people with limited capabilities.
So separate practices, additional events need to be developed for will be interested to hear that. By the way, you know that today we have received the outcomes of the cultural competition called Initiative. And I believe that all our efforts will help us to overcome the barriers of developing volunteership in the Russian Federation and also on the international level. And one of the subjects of our this week's platform, this week's event, should be getting the ability to get together to work out solutions to overcome the existing barriers. And so the more proposals we receive, the higher there will be the likelihood that we will overcome the existing barriers as quickly as possible. And right now, I know that it's quite difficult to actually go to the regions and attract people, but an online format and the format of social networks will become instrumental in developing even these opportunity. And I would like to ask you, what's the status in this respect, because you can share your experience of your volunteers overcoming the existing barriers, and maybe there are opportunities that you can share and help volunteers in the Tula and their Lov region to overcome the issues. Currently, we have 87 regions participating in the volunteer movement. I know that there are quite a lot of issues. Maybe some people find it hard to get financing. Some people actually cannot physically get permission to work with certain monuments. There are licensing issues. There are issues of various barriers stemming from the status of the monument. So these are the easiest and most common barriers or issues. Well, how do we deal with this? For example, if we take the Buryatia Republic, there was a project that we undertook, the project of restoring a cathedral. That was a very pressing, relevant issue. That was a central cathedral for quite a number of districts, and volunteers are few, people living in is head of the foundation, supervising regional volunteer foundations and initiatives. She started with working with cultural objects. Then she proceeded with master classes that actually didn't have much to do with legacy, with actual monuments, but she decided to start with this idea. Currently, the level of loyalty among volunteers is higher, and authorities are willing to allow volunteers to get closer and work in a closer contact with cultural heritage monuments. You could try to access your target from a different prospect, different from what you are used to do. Well, the issue of funding is one of the most pressing, especially for the regions and districts. So the more remote the district is, the harder it is to get financing for these type of projects. Of course, grant programs also become harder to participate. The Russian Culture Foundation issues grants and helps us with this. We feel support, but sometimes to prepare certain bids requires more time than is adequate. You get out of life for a couple of weeks and then you sit on the fence waiting whether you will win or not. And many things you have to do on your own account with that, right? I know that non-profit organization format helps many foundations to operate. Volunteers can help with, for example, making and selling souvenirs, and that becomes one of the sources of income for this non-profit organization. This is probably one of the tools to overcome this funding issue. And of course, there is still an issue of attracting people, especially in remote areas. I'm always getting back to my own case, the Orlov region. There are territories of compact settlement, and there are really remote areas, remote from the district center, and developing volunteers requires in-person meetings, in-person events, which means you have to travel there. You have to keep your hand on the control gear, and I know that people who are active in what we do will understand how difficult it is to be implemented. I know that volunteership can be one of the ways for lonely people to socialize, to find friends. And people like this who enter volunteering groups continue to keep in touch with their friends. For example, I know that when we established cultural events for volunteers, we arranged special stalls for people to come up and have, for example, a stamp with the name of a favorite writer to be put on their certificates and so on and so forth. So people felt themselves part of the whole event, part of this cultural initiative, and they really got the chance to socialize, to get to know one another, and to share their interests. You can also access dobro.rf website. This is a great resource and platform which provides you also a system of bonuses. At the end of this year or early next year, you're planning the integration of this system, which means that a volunteer will be able to exchange the volunteering hours to some score, and you will be able to spend that. So courses require specially qualified tutors and so on, but that requires time. In fact, what you're doing right now and what's happening in the regions only shows that the bids for a grant program. They are interested in acquiring new skills like accounting and other relevant skills. And the license or the certificate will put them in a position to actually make the aspirations come true. This training I'm talking about is in line with a federal project of promoting better employment for people seeking jobs, including for also cooperate with a platform called Russia is the Country of Opportunities. And within that program, a person as a volunteer can get bonuses that could be exchanged for certain opportunities, something like traveling inside the country using your score. So this will attract more people to our in-person events that we hold quite frequently. We're also addressing the issue of certifying certain activity types. It helps us to make a hierarchy of the most active people and the most and areas most interesting to certain people, which means that people will specialize and their documents, their certificates will reflect that. It's great that we are all on the same page about this, and I hope that we will carry on our efforts. Speaking about the material incentives, everyone may know about the Pushkin card. Unfortunately, I'm not in the right age group to be eligible for these perks, but that's a great step forward. If we say that the state really influences the operation of this whole structure. Our time is unfortunately running out, but I'm sure that we can talk about this forever. That's good that we have certain barriers, because without them, there would not be any driving force to move forward. Anna or Roman, thank you very much for your interesting experience, for your informative speech. It's great that we're all moving in sync, and thank you very much. Now let's get back together in 10 minutes time to talk about the theories of generations, to discuss how to work with them and how to interact with different generations. So come back in 10 minutes time.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры — это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы — это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новые знания и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Почти в каждом городе есть старинные здания, которые определяют его лицо. Делают город отличающимся, необычным. Во многих таких зданиях сегодня располагаются музеи. Сюда приходят туристы, здесь происходят культурные мероприятия. Но многие объекты культурного наследия нуждаются в реставрации, ремонте, поддержке. Хотели бы что-то сделать для этих зданий, помочь в их восстановлении? Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Программа поддерживает добровольческое движение, помогает беречь культурное наследие и исторический облик наших городов. Став участником, вы научитесь новому, поставите перед собой интересные, необычные цели, сможете реализовать собственные идеи и проекты, собрать свою команду для того, чтобы реальными делами помогать сохранению истории и развитию культуры.
Я думаю, что волонтерское движение – это вообще очень важный факт нашей жизни, вот современной. Волонтеры очень нужны, и мы все очень нуждаемся в них.
Принять участие в программе «Волонтеры культуры» может каждый. Помогайте сохранять свои города и их культурное наследие. Возраст не важен. Получить нужные умения и внести свой вклад могут все. Участвуйте в программе «Волонтеры культуры».
Я уже записался. Увидимся.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны.
Волонтеров и их вклада, и наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры — это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы — это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новые знания и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Всем привет, и мы рады приветствовать на нашей следующей
Hello,
секции,
everyone,
которая
and we are
называется
happy to
«Теория
see you at the
поколений».
next
Работа с
session of ours,
поколениями,
which is
как
called
взаимодействовать с
Theory
разными
of
возрастными
Generations,
группами,
how you
защищая
interact with
детей,
different
как
age groups,
работает эта
why
система.
you do
Сегодня у нас в
this,
гостях Павел Савчук, соорганизатор
how it
Всероссийской
works.
акции
And
взаимопомощи
we
«Мы
have
вместе»,
Pavel
руководитель Российского
Savchuk
Красного
and
Креста, председатель
co-organizer
Совета
of
организаторов мероприятий в Государственном историческом музее.
We Are
Я бы хотела
Together
передать слово
initiative, head
Павлу.
of Russian
Павел,
Red
расскажите,
Cross, and we
пожалуйста,
have
вашу историю.
Klebenskaya
Вы работаете с
Elizaveta,
теорией
who
поколений
joins
уже
him
не
as well.
первый год. И это
So,
действительно
Pavel, you've
очень
been working
важно.
with the theory of generations for quite a long time. So tell us about it. Hi. Yeah, I'm very happy to see here on this Saturday morning. I want to especially thank the organizers for raising an extremely important subject. And interaction between different generations is important in any kind of processes when you organize the work of the old team, when you are reboot the new team, when organization is being updated. That's what we are working on in the Russian Red Cross, how we are improving the humanitarian support situation. And I've been heading medical volunteers movements, the largest movement in Europe, and one of the main mottos that we had, and I think it should be the main motto for all the volunteers. This anyone can be a volunteer irrespectively of his or her age, social status, beliefs, and other factors. And the difference in age is a difference in terms of approaches and understanding certain processes that are taking place. And the experience that is different, and but we cannot say that volunteers of a specific age are the ones who are especially valuable, because every age, both physiologically and psychologically, has its advantages and disadvantages. Young ones are more creative, they are ready for changes, they get actively involved in volunteering due to different reasons, either looking for new contacts, new people, or they want to get new knowledge and experience. Because very often people volunteer in the sphere where in the sphere that they've been trained for. For instance, a doctor volunteer can become a medical volunteer. And in parallel, there is a different thing. People having no targeted education, and I think it's typical for cultural volunteers. Well, maybe they were considering, well, maybe I'll get some profession in the sphere of culture, but they just want to work somehow in the sphere. And I think volunteering is a great thing in the sense, and we have a separate camp, and there are quite a lot of events you can take part in. And I think it's the statement that we promote is very important. Volunteering being the norm of life. So volunteering is not connected with the age. There are no numbers to it. And volunteering is being developed amongst school children and on the all Russian and regional level. I think it's really cool. And I think that any age has its advantages and its motivation. So that's why the organizers of the volunteering activities has to take that into account, the motivation. You know, there is motivation and there is maintaining or retention, and it doesn't sound nice, but it's important. I think motivation is a tool and retention is a process that has to be there. And I have a question here. Let me ask a question from me. You were in your first year of the university when you tried volunteering, and later on you became volunteer in Olympic and Paralympic Games in Sochi, and then you became part of the organizational committee of the Olympics. And now you're heading the Russian Red Cross. Who or what affected you at the beginning of your journey that you chose volunteering activity as the one? Yeah, that's all true. It was just an accident. And as for motivations, for my motivation in volunteering, I got into the medical university and I wanted more interesting events, trips, meeting new people and so on. That's why I chose volunteering activity, and I went to the Olympics with such motivation that when would be the next time when I'll be able to volunteer in the Olympics. Maybe it's in 20 or 30, maybe it'll happen in 20 or 30 years. So my motivation was to see a historical event. And the Soccer World Cup was a similar historical event. So I became a volunteer for the Olympics. I became a member of the organizational committee, and we were organizing volunteering centers. And it's very interesting to mention that in Russia, we have a trend of moving from event-related volunteering to long-term volunteering, like cultural volunteering. When people are not do not just take part in a single event, because there the motivation is just to take a peek at the event, the opening ceremony or closing ceremony. Naturally, in this case, volunteering involves young people. If we talk about Olympic Games, like 80% of volunteers, Russian volunteers, were young people. The average age of volunteers is 19 to 25 years old in our country. And the pandemic has affected that mean age. And during the first and second waves, there were very tough periods. The average age of a volunteer was 30 to 40 years of age. This indicator is quite an unusual one, we can say. it's not very typical for our volunteering environment. It's similar to the Western environment, where it's not the young people who volunteer, but people volunteer who have their jobs, who have their families as one of the types of social activities for them. And when there was this transit of the voluntary environment from event-based volunteering to social and cultural volunteering. But by social volunteering, I don't mean working in a hospice. It's about volunteering that's focuses on certain area of activity. So when this transit started happening, more and more older people started getting involved, like middle-aged and old age too. And during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people who take part in the volunteering activities, and for them, the main reason for them not to get involved in volunteering before that, they didn't have enough time, as if when they work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 and they have family and so on, it's not easy for them to find time for volunteering. I think it's possible to find time, and there are a lot of online volunteering events. Yeah. And we have another question from our viewers. What do you think? What's the most effective team to create a volunteering community? One generation people, several generations people, and how your team was being created? I think it's a very important question because you've got a very efficient team. Well, I think it's a philosophical question. On the one hand side, people of the same age will be like-minded with you. You say A, they say B, and they catch up on you, and it's very comfortable for you to communicate with them. Zoom, WhatsApp, Skype, Telegram, Viber. The older people, you feel the distance between you, but working in the Red Cross, how old anyone is. And I recently learned that my team members in the Red Cross are, I learned their specific age. I was surprised. I didn't expect them being that old. And if we are talking about some integration projects, then it makes sense to involve the younger people because they're better with technology. When we are talking about the complex projects, then people from different generations will give their different views on the same matter, and that's why there will be discussions, brainstorms. Older people will be using their experience, young people will be using their views and their creativity. So for all the focus groups, for all the social surveys, people take differently aged people. And I think in volunteering, it's very important to invite everyone who wants to join. And when we are talking about involving people of old age, we need to understand that we have conditions for that. For instance, if you have a Telegram chatbot and you think that it'll be the only place for you to recruit volunteers, or you make TikTok as a main platform for your interaction with volunteers, then you need to understand that the older generation, middle-aged people, I mean, even 30-plus people, they won't be always able to efficiently use it. That's why you need to take into account the target audience and create select the specific platforms. For instance, when we started getting older volunteers, then we got groups in Одноклассники or classmate social media. And we are creating chatbot with psychologists. So we had a chatbot in Viber. For those who use Viber, we have such category. And we had a Telegram bot and Vkontakte bot. So every audience was able to find a point of contact. So if you think that your project would be of interest for all the people, you need to understand that there should be several. Every person would agree on that. So you need to understand your main target audience in any project that you create. And I think the target audience should be as wide as possible because it gives us new opportunities and new resources. But organizing a project with broad audience, I mean, not the recipients of the help, but the volunteers. The wider your audience is, then broader the spectrum of the events you carry out should be, and it's more organizational activity from recruiting volunteers and down to retention and supporting them. You have to take that into account. Pavel, thank you very much. And I'm sure that the organizers of volunteering activity has expanded their horizons. And I think the regions is a good example here.
And we try to integrate everything with Dobro.rf, but we communicate differently with different generations. Thank you very much, Pavel. And thanks again. And I'd like to hand over to Yelizaveta Klevenska, organizer of events for the State Historical Museum, who works with different generations. Could you please share with us what approaches do you apply to every generation? Good morning, dear participants of the volunteer camp. Thank you very much to organizers for inviting me to speak at today's event. I have prepared a small presentation for you, and I hope that I will be able to share it successfully. I hope everybody can see my presentation. Today, I would like to tell you about the volunteering program that we run at our historical museum. As an event organizer, I'm also head of the volunteer program. The historical museum, so that you could get a clear picture, is a whole museum complex that includes several buildings. The first one is familiar to you, is a beautiful castle in the Red Square, the main building of our museum, and many people must have already visited it. The second building is the Museum of the Patriotic War of 1812, named after Lenin. Also, the historical museum includes the Pokrovsk Cathedral, the chambers of the Romanovs, and a branch of our museum in Tula. Today we are holding our festivities within our museum branch because of the anniversary of its establishment. Well, the start of the program was in March 2017, and our target audience was the graduates of Moscow universities. Everything started with signing an agreement between the Historical Museum and the historical faculty of the Moscow State Lomonosov University. So the first volunteers were the graduates of the historical faculty of the Lomonosov University. In 2019, our program shifted to higher gear, and we started cooperating with the Patanin Foundation. And in 2020-2021, we created our own directorate of volunteer management. So these are the main milestones of the development of our volunteer program. For our museum, volunteers are very helpful. And for the volunteers themselves, that's a great opportunity to actually become part of the historical processes, to be part of the field of history. And then it also provides an opportunity to get some hands-on experience of working in a museum, and also be part of some global cultural events such as All Russian campaigns or the anniversary of our museum and other significant events. Of course, it's also self-implementation. We have quite a number of cases when volunteers in our museum become our staff members subsequently, and volunteership becomes a transitional period for these people. For example, when a person is a student and they have their theoretical academic training, but they have no hands-on experience, and volunteership is a good opportunity to give them exactly that. Also, volunteers get new skills in addition to their theoretical knowledge. And within this volunteer program, we try to provide as much practice as possible to students. And of course, museum volunteering is communication with people. Currently, we have 100 people on our team. All of them know each other, know one another very well. They might be from one and the same faculty, from one and the same year. So this is a large, closely knit team of 100 people. Regularly, we renew the team. We announce a new draft every year. But all our old volunteers will always be able to remain on the team. We don't have any cases when, for example, a volunteer helped with something else, with something one time, and then was never active before. We try to involve people in as many events as possible. So what is the activity of volunteers in our museum? We have 4 areas for volunteer activity in our museum. Number 1 is excursions and tours. Here we have students who would like to become guides in the future. And that's why, working in this area, they get an opportunity to receive training in tour guides from our museum professionals. This can be about archaeology or 18th or 19th century expositions. And after a 3-month training from the leading professionals of the museum, our volunteers can practice their knowledge within large-scale campaigns. What they do successfully, by the way. The second area is develop the expositions with which to better start their tour, and so on and so forth. Also, volunteers participate in creating master classes and other activities for the guests. Also, they provide questionnaires to the visitors, and as a result of these questionnaires, we analyze what expositions or activities are most interesting to the visitors, what are the sources of information about the university or the campaigns of the museum that they got information from. This is how we understand the ways to improve our activity in the future. Also, our volunteers help us with writing posts in the social networks, thus helping to promote our museum on the internet. Another area for volunteers is helping with in the museum storage. We have 21 storages, and almost all of them are willing to take volunteers as helpers. Usually these volunteers are someone who are working on their degree works, degree papers, or other research works which involve studying some objects of the history of the art kept in the museum, because many of them cannot be exhibited for their very poor state and for being quite fragile because of their age. So, and the next area for volunteers, which is especially important, is inclusive volunteership. This is about interacting with special care people with mental disabilities, physical disabilities, people of very senior age. We have a program for accessibility to all groups of people, and volunteers are quite instrumental in promoting this area. Our volunteers get their training in sign language and the ways of interacting with special needs people. Speaking about the format of interacting with volunteers, I have already mentioned that we renewed our volunteering staff every year. We do it both online and offline. We publish posts announcing the new recruitment campaign of volunteers, and also tell people how they can be helpful within certain programs. After the selection, new volunteers need to be onboarded, and we have a special welcome course for people like this. Where more experienced volunteers tell the newbies about the areas available to them and help them select these areas. Then we provide trainings and provide practical cases that they have to solve and work out a solution to, so that they could immerse themselves into the atmosphere. At the next stage, they begin their actual volunteering activity. This happens following all the selection stages and training stages. So this is the stage of actual events. During this stage, there is always a supervision from more experienced volunteers or supervisors, as we call them. And after every event, there is the analysis of the volunteers' actions and working out of possible solutions and so on and so forth. It means that we give feedback. At the next stage, we do the following. Well, but of course, not everyone is ready to be volunteer for a very long period of time. For example, when students get to their higher years at university, they have less time for volunteering because they have more disciplines to master, they have to prepare for their degrees and so on and so forth. So they can suspend their volunteership. Someone transits from volunteers to staff, to museum staff, because people feel interested. So we see there are actually different options. If we speak about benefits for volunteers, they are divided into volunteer in our museum T-shirt, then a special loyalty card called Sputnik provides various bonuses. Then also tickets to events for volunteers who have excelled in certain events. So they get tickets for interesting, significant events at the museum for themselves and their close ones. And of course, an important thing is something tasty and pleasant. Large-scale campaigns last for quite a while, and we always try to arrange volunteer headquarters where they can have some rest and have a snack, and we provide these things on a regular basis. Speaking about intangible benefits, here you can see three key groups. Number one is recognition of your assistance to museum, recognition of your usefulness, because of course there are situations when without volunteers we can't do anything effectively. The next one is an opportunity to meet with significant personalities. For example, you can see in the center our museum director, on the left and right are volunteers, and this picture was taken during the campaign called Breakfast with the Museum Director. These are all the volunteers who have excelled in their assistance during the Football World Cup Championship. And also another intangible benefit is the employment opportunities. When you're a student, you become a volunteer at our museum, and subsequently you have a better prospect of becoming part of our staff. Speaking about communications, for us it is important to support the communication among all our volunteers and leaders and our staff members. So we have three main communication channels. Number one is Vkontakte platform. You can see the QR code here, and we have a general volunteer chat in Vkontakte for the key organizational information. Then we also have a Telegram channel. This channel was initiated by volunteers themselves. We have several branches of this channel. For example, a channel on new vacancies for volunteers. Then also a channel on our new events, channel on birthday celebrations. And we also have a special rubric called The History of an Exhibit, where we tell about the history of every unique exhibit in the museum. And this is our system of interaction with volunteers. Here we always publish the recruitment announcements for every event, and this is how channel admins see what volunteers have signed up for what type of events, and this is a good tool of statistics for us when it comes to volunteers and the projects that they participate in. We also have a special channel devoted to training, where we post materials on inclusive volunteership, on museum training, and so on and so forth.
And there, any volunteer can take a look at how many events he or she took part in, and rating system, and so on. In the first 10, from the top 10 volunteers receive nice presents from a museum. As for managing volunteers, it consists of 3 big parts. Ahead of, we have heads of volunteers, then secondly, team leaders. Normally it's 4 team leaders that are split in 4 areas that I mentioned before. And team leader is one of the most experienced. Your questions, if you have any comments and requests, you can send them there. And to conclude my presentation, I want to say that our volunteering program includes young people, graduates and students, but we had cases when we were working with the silver volunteers, when we had the Night of Museums in 2020, and it was a very nice case for us. And we are ready to expand the members of our programs to include more members, and we are happy to expand the collaboration and so on. And thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. Elizaveta, very interesting practice. And we had Daria Sukharukova, and it's not the first time we hear this. So you were a volunteer in NIM, or State Historical Museum. And so how did you come? Yeah, when I went to the 2nd year of the Historical Department of Moscow State University, I became a volunteer, and I think I tried all the areas, and I realized that museum is like my home. And in the first year, or in the beginning of the 2nd year, I felt that the university is my home. But after starting volunteering, I realized that a museum is the place where I can develop the theoretical experience that I get from the university, and I have my ideas. And I think that a State Historical Museum is a unique spot to implement basically all the ideas. And I somehow understood that, yeah, that's what I want now in the short-term and mid-term perspective. So that's why I am employed by State Historical Museum, and I think it's quite a useful case when they can talk to a person who was a volunteer and became an employer. And now we have 24 employers who used to be volunteers. And the guys who just joined our program, they are very interested in talking to us. And I think I've made my dream come true, becoming the employer of the Historical Museum. Thank you for your response. And I think all the stories are different. And they very often ask, how do you turn from a volunteer to a an employer in the cultural sphere because it's close here, and State Historical Museum, it's very hard to get in there, and it's really cool achievement, especially for our generation. I want to congratulate you. I know that it's a recent development. Congratulations on your new position, and congratulations on your great speech in volunteer camp. And I think it will be a really cool start. And I'm sure that our viewers have made screens of your contact details. The question, if I'm only 14, can I become a volunteer? Unfortunately, you cannot volunteer in our museum if it's 14 because we accept only adults. It's logical because a volunteer has to be responsible for him and herself. And in our museum, everyone has to be accompanied by an adult if he or she is not yet 18. And when, in case of the clubs and so on, there should be an adult always who is in charge of a child. So as part of our volunteering program, only 18. I think the 16-year-old teenagers feel sad now. We have to come with mom and so on. Next question. We know that you have inclusive teaching training, how to work with people who have to be included. So how does it happen? What kind of training you have and so on? Yes, we do have it. And in the same group, it can be newcomers and more experienced volunteers. Taking part in such a training is good for the new people, getting knowledge how to communicate with the disabled people, but it's also a case for the experienced volunteers because they can see what they can share with the young volunteers. We have the training on the basics of Russian Sign Language, social stories creation, and naturally it's on interaction with the disabled people on site. We have a set of official documents. We always study them, and they are set on the website, and any volunteer can check these documents and guidelines. These are the main rules of how to communicate with visitors, blind people, people in wheelchairs, how you interact with them, and so on. So this training includes cases too, and our experts on inclusion, they show how to use the wheelchair, how to create a route for a person in a wheelchair in a museum. So it's not just theoretical basis, it's also practical. So the volunteer is able to understand how to theoretically interact with disabled people. When he or she comes across a disabled person in real life, they would know how to communicate with them to make sure that their visit to museum is most comfortable. Another question from our viewers: how do you work with silver volunteers, because they always want to be useful? And people, viewers say, yes, we want to be useful and so on. And we had a case when an application was submitted by a man of 85 years old and was a youth camp. And we were ready to approve him, but we were limited by COVID. And I'm sure that next year we'll be able to accept him. And I think he'll be able to teach young volunteers a lot, how to work in the village, how to work in awareness campaigns, and so on. So, what about you? Well, I had only one experience working with silver volunteers. It was the Museum Night 2020. It was a really cool case then when our guys, the graduates and students of the Moscow universities, met experienced volunteers, and we were always coupling a student and an older volunteer, and we were looking at how they were working, and it was just amazing. It was amazing coupling. A student was sharing his or her own experience from volunteering and from the studies, and the civil volunteer was sharing their experience, how to do something here, how to work on this whole. So communication between representatives of different generations is really important. And I saw this in the case that we had. And in future, if we start receiving requests from silver volunteers to take part in historical museum activities, and we are happy to collaborate, because our guys were very happy about that museum night, and it would be a very good advantage for us. And now the question from the Z generation, I guess. As you know, Z generation has clip thinking. It's around 8 seconds. Do you use this in your practice? Maybe you have a TikTok for the historical museum. Yeah. State Historical Museum has TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I think we are covering pretty much all the social media. And it's done by the historical museum itself and by the volunteering group, because we have our own group in Vkontakte and our own Telegram channel. And we'll create our account in Instagram and in TikTok. Guys are very enthusiastic about it. They're working on content plan now to develop ourselves. I think it's really cool. And Instagram is very popular together with stories, and TikTok too. So we're happy to move along with the time, telling more about our events, sharing our experience, and collaborate. Thank you very much, Elizaveta. And I have last question left. All the young people, all the Z generation, they are about self-development. It's important for them to develop, to learn something new. What do you think? What's important to find your specific direction, or try and test everything? Well, in the beginning, if you don't know what you want to do in future, I think you need to test all the things. I had this case myself when I started volunteering for the historical museum. I was trying organization development, and then foundation program, such totally different situation. Then I was working on the tour, and then I realized that organization and development is something that's best for me, and I stayed there, and now I am an employer and I organize the events. I think the same is true for some other big things. If you are considering different spheres, which university to go to become who. So I think you need to try and test everything before making a big decision. Before you try, you are not able to understand what's your thing. Thank you very much. And I think we have very little time left, and I want to thank you for such a content-rich speech. And I think we have at least one more new volunteer coming to the State Historical Museum, and maybe much more. And I've been there for a few times. It's its own world, diving deep into the history, visiting your exhibitions, and volunteers are a part of this world. It's really cool. Thank you very much. A lot of cases, and the foreign expert will be talking about their magazine, and this is being published online, and it's really cool. And we see you in around 10 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and we are continuing our International Volunteer Camp. This is the last formal session of today, where you will hear the professionals in our sphere, both in Russia and abroad. They will tell you who volunteers are, how social networks operate, how journals operate, how our world works. And now we are starting the session of the culture of working on the social networks, where the speakers are Nikolai Litvinov, winner of the All Russia competition of the cultural centers, professor of the School of Management, partner of Wikipedia. Today we're also having Ernest Chipo, director of the foundation and head of the journal, and also Alina, who's also head of the publishing house. So you will have something interesting to hear from all our panelists. Nikolai, the floor is yours. Good time of day. I welcome everyone. And I know that you have prepared quite an interesting presentation and speech, and we're all eager to hear it. Well, it is my pleasure to greet all the participants of the International Volunteer Camp, and I'm very honored to be part of such a significant event. And I have prepared a presentation related to my activity in media, in marketing, and brand management. Let me try and share my screen. I have been already introduced, and I only have to add that I'm a member of the partnership called wikimedia.ru. That's a website which we're developing. We are promoting the website, so we're part of Wikipedia. On our part, we are working in the Russian Federation languages. So in my speech, I would like to focus on the work with this most popular resource, which has a global popularity. And you can see in the slide a map painted by Serbian designer Martin Vargic. He depicted it in the form of an ancient map, but the size of the continent reflects the popularity of the websites that we all know, primarily YouTube, social networks. We see a separate continent looking like Greenland, but it's Wikipedia. So I will tell you about the way to work with the most popular resource for the promotion of cultural institutions, preserving our cultural heritage. As a case, we took a wiki expedition that took place back in August and was called the Reserve Ruza. Ruza is the city in the Moscow region. Speaking about the number of visits to the website, I have sourced the statistics from the Amazon branch, which analyzes the popularity of Wikipedia globally. It is ranking 15 in the world currently in terms of its popularity. It used to be number 5, but it had to go down a little bit because global internet corporations have integrated quite profoundly into Wikipedia and reflect them on their websites. That is why many users read Wikipedia from corporate websites like Google, Yandex, and the rest. So before we actually start, the question is how to work with this global encyclopedia. What is there that a volunteer can do here? What contribution can he make in the country where he or she lives? This is something to think about before you hit the button edit. The mobile application of Wikipedia is quite useful for a traveler, for a mobile person. But when we speak about editing articles there or writing, let us think about where to begin. A few words about our organization, Wikimedia.ru. We are located in the business center in Vozdvizhenskaya Street, almost in the center of Moscow, and we're welcoming all of you to our headquarters. Currently, we're running Wiki Conference 2021, and we're inviting you to continue your study here from here on our platform. What do we start with as an organization? You can start working independently as a volunteer. That's level 1. A volunteer can be part of a volunteer movement of Russia. And here we all remember the dobro.ru website, where we can be registered both as private volunteers and as volunteer organizations, volunteer centers. There are interesting competitions and various events run on that platform. Our organization format allows us to take part in these competitions. So as an organization, we have applied for help in our with cultural legacy to the Russian government, and the Department of Information Support replied to us. So to start working with Wikipedia in terms of cultural content, our national cultural content, you have to comply with certain legal requirements, including signing agreements. So before starting editing something yourself, we decided to establish a competition. So before the competition, we established an award, free knowledge for Wikimedia. It covered the Moscow region, and it was part of a larger awards called Mediana, which is hosted by our Moscow governor. This year we have issued awards to the 3 best editors' offices in Ruza, in Sholkovo city, and another publishing or editor's office also in the region, in the Moscow region. Why were they selected as the winners? On their websites, you can see the sign of a free license, Creative Commons, which means that we can refer this agency while integrating their materials into the global encyclopedia. So what journalists are writing about has a chance of not ending up in archives, but can be integrated into the global encyclopedia when it comes to interesting facts about the territory, about the investment attractivity, and so on and so forth. And this is one of the ways to prepare the ground for future editing the Wikipedia. Before a volunteer starts contributing to Wikipedia, we as the organization create create new editors, new photographers. We create a comfortable environment for potential authors of encyclopedic articles. We teach them to take information from open sources with open licenses. And all their photographs and information could end up in the global encyclopedia. We are cooperating with the main Department for Information Policy, and we hosted a special competition, which was called Know Your Moscow Region with Wikipedia. And the results were quite exciting. People appeared to be very interested in their territory and what surrounds them. And their travels, they described not in social networks, which disappear just like any mass media sources, but they posted information in Wikimedia. We have more than 100 articles, and we're just drawing the results of this competition. We're expecting to establish a second wave of this competition with prizes, and the nomination will cover not just 3 winners, but more categories. For example, we have a lot of historical events, and the anniversaries of many of such historical events are coming close. So we're going to include them as one of the subjects to be covered during the competition. So we're actually looking forward to the second wave of the competition. It will take place until the 5th of October, and you can see the order here, or the medal with a star. This would be one of the prizes to the winners. So keep tabs on our website, wikimedia.ru, as to when the second tour of this competition will start. And the third stage of our cooperation with the Moscow region government was the so-called Wiki Expedition. That's a new format of traveling, the new format of a press tour, and the new format of working with volunteers and editors, both new and experienced ones that are related to Wikipedia. What is it different from Wikipedia? It's about the format. We analyze everything that has been done before us in mass media, in journals, in scientific publications created by photographers who have managed to collect quite an interesting amount of material over the years that they have been working in their territories. So all this information gets compiled within this project, then thoroughly prepared to be posted in Wikipedia. So this is the whole scope of works required before you actually touch the button of edit in Wikipedia, before you start popularizing certain region of your country on the global platform, because Wikipedia is accessed by so many people that we're responsible for the information we are posted. Even in Russian, even in the Russian language, we are missing many articles in Wikipedia. That's why we're running a lot of campaigns and activities, and our contribution ends up in 2% of the global contributions, and largely thanks to volunteers. In the slide, you can see the technical program, technical requirements to Wiki Expedition program. This involves the administration of the Ruza city municipal authorities. These are the Russian National History Museum. These are the local museum authorities, and the Russian government also provided support to us in our expedition for information sourcing. We collected a lot of information within that expedition. We were also helped a lot by administrations of the tourist centers, regional tourist centers. For example, here you can see that the village of the Husky nation, small nationality living in Russia, met us while we were on an expedition. And we were able to see unique animals. Our wiki expedition started in a very exciting way. Let me share with you some practical examples. You can see cases of media volunteership and cooperation with mass media and social networks in terms of covering a certain cultural event. In particular, in covering our research expedition with the aim of adding to the existing articles about our Ruza district in the Moscow region. We planned the destinations which would be of key importance and interest. We listed all the objects of cultural interest and significance. We checked whether the photography was quality, had enough quality. We also did publications of mass media, which is characteristic of all our information tours. But then we got down to specifics. What was the result of our wiki expedition? That was the unique cultural material that we have been able to acquire, historical data, which has been obsolete for a lot of time, for a lot of years, and we have been able to access archives, and municipal authorities have been kind enough to provide their archival materials, and we got unique photographs, unique information, which used to be kept in the museum archives and would never be seen by anyone unless shown in mass media. And this is something that we did. You can see this picture taken a lot of time ago, and we managed to publish it on the global platform of Wikipedia. And the museum provided a lot of support to us in terms of information, providing the scientific passport, as we call it, to this picture, meaning that it contained description of where the picture was taken, at what time, and so on and so forth. But passports to pictures or descriptions is very hard to fill in because this requires a lot of meticulous work. So that's where media volunteers come in with their assistance. They help to identify certain objects captured in pictures in a correct way, to categorize them. And that's how we get our quality information in Wikimedia storage. And we can be sure that all pictures, all illustrations have a proper and correct descriptions. And our our foreign volunteers can also help us with these correct descriptions. They can complement their information.
This is a drawing of Vladimir Litvinov with the ancient port, and there is nice museum building. So you can restore the building, and it was destroyed by the fire. So it's one of the parts of the building. So based on that, we have suggested the new brand for Ruza Regional History Museum. When we went to Wiki Expedition, we were talking to the employees of the museum, employees of the tourist centers, and we did a brainstorm about what is unique about city or town, and why would it be interesting to Russian tourists and foreign. Reproduces the life of ancient Slavs in the 20th, 12th, and 13th centuries. And after global wiki storage got the upload from there, was this status received, and this picture became a key one. It means that it has priority in its locations, not only in Russian Wikipedia but in other Wikipedia, and we can see that volunteers translated it into Spanish and there will be translations into other languages like Bulgarian, Greek, and this star allows us to getting on the first page of global wiki storage page, and in Russian too. And when you are logging onto Wikipedia, you see the image of the day, and we hope that in September it'll be the image on the homepage of Russian Wikipedia. And this is an example of what our region can do. There are examples of the Vyatichi tribes and Novgorod tribes, and this club includes around 10 adults and 6 children, and they take part in different festivals. Another result is the museum exhibits. They are also of great interest. When the photos are taken the right way, they are used in Russian Wikipedia. We can see the Korchaga. This is for the drinks and for the food, and the peasants used it. And it is within the same, it's part of the article dedicated to Korchaga itself, and it's also a valuable image. It's a different status. It means that this image is very important for an article. And here it is about the plot and the photographer's talent. Also, in the global encyclopedia, they use the newest big data processing technology. And there is a Wikidata project that collects different cards. So when we have created the Russian Regional History Museum, we have created a card for this museum. We used a special software. It's an It's an open source. Anyone can use it. So we took the parameter museum and parameter location of the museum in the Moscow region. And here in this map, we can see how many museums in the Moscow region have articles in Wikipedia. But in reality, there are many more museums. So working with volunteers can do a lot here in terms of museum exhibits, in terms of creating articles on the museums, in terms of working with the media bank, uploading the register and images that can be used in different articles. And the more images we have placed in the articles, the more links we'll be having for the article on museum collections, and the more popular they would become. Abroad, they've even created new positions that are called wiki residents. And tomorrow we'll have Wiki Conference 2021, and we'll be listening to a person who used to work in the British Museum. And this is the most popular museum. It doesn't need advertising. But nonetheless, he's doing a great, he's doing a lot of work with Wikidata, with Wikibank, and with interactive maps. This is an interactive map. If you click on it, you go to Moscow region article and section culture, and you see the map there, and you can click there. You can click what kind of museums are described and which are not. Another modern tool for big data is interactive timescale. All that is done with the help of Wikidata and Wikipedia, with the help of a Wikidata timeline program. So what can it give you? Here, in the corner on the right, you can see claim command. These are the codes to the cards, properties, and element. That is also this is also published in the culture section of the Moscow region article. Why did we publish it? Because the Russian Regional History Museum stated that this is the oldest museum in the Moscow region, or one of the oldest ones. And we checked it in the timeline. Yeah, indeed, Russian Regional History Museum that appeared in 906 is very old. And the Borodin Battle and the Tchaikovsky museums, these two are older. So it's within top 3 of the oldest museums in the region. And if we take a look at the formula that creates this chronological scale, we will be able to see that first number is the property location, and 1697 it's the element Moscow region. So we check the Moscow region, and then there is a non-claim, the notion, which is a museum, and we get this kind of scale being created automatically, and it's an example of how you work with big data in Wikipedia. So that's another thing that can be done by basically any person. You can try to analyze your region based on the examples we gave you, and you can check how many articles there are in your region dedicated to museums, to cultural heritage sites. You can check temples, churches, and when we traveled as part of Wiki Expedition, seeing the sites and the objects, seeing the Orkhov's Museum and Zola, the new museum complex. we were able to see what's really happened there, because they used to be old pictures in Wikipedia before the refurbishment, and now they are up and running, so we updated the pictures. And we have published information on the event, and I'll try to share it now. That's what our press release looks like of Wiki Expedition. There are interactive scales, interactive map on the right. Then there is a description of what we looked at. And our Wiki Expedition was joined by the editor-in-chief and CEO of Komsomolskaya Pravda, Borkin. And since the government of Moscow region was curating us, we had a meeting and a brainstorm together with the Minister of Moscow region, Anastasia Zvega. Nikolai, can you hear me? Indeed, we saw something, how much work you've done, and you've been doing for many years. And we have several questions from our viewers, and then we'll have to continue. So how many people have been working on all this, on this baby of yours? It's a really cool project. Wiki Expedition, well, there was a team of 5 people working on it. Everything is there in press release. And 360 channel was helping us, and it wouldn't have been possible without them. And normally there are 7 to 10 people taking part in Wiki Expedition. They start filling in these articles, but here we had a special case. There was a competition happening, Learn Moscow Region with Wikipedia. So a lot of people joined us who helped creating 29 articles. Now maybe it's even more in Russian language. And how do you become a volunteer for Wikipedia, Wikimedia? You can sign up for Wiki Expedition. You can start uploading your pictures. You can take part in our meetings, Wikimedia RU. They're happening in Skype now. And you can suggest your destination, and you can suggest the spot that you think that it's worth it for people in Russia and abroad to see it. I've been telling only about Moscow region, but before that we had another set of projects like Wiki Euros that was supported by the Perm Regional History University and Patanis Foundation. And we had over 230 articles created in 20 So there was a lot that was done there. Now, now we are working with Kamchatka and many other regions. Thank you very much for speaking out. And now we are having Chip Patera from media industry with huge experience. And I want to give him the floor to listen to what kind of media, what kind of magazines are popular in your country.
Hello. As the host said, I'm Ernest Chipo from Malawi. I'm in media industry. I'm working as director of operation with Infinity Media Group. We are also do cultural number of cultural things. We do publish cultural magazine. Yeah, so basically I will present about volunteerism and social media. I will share my screen later on my presentation and some other things which we are going to tackle. First of all, we have to understand about what is the social networking, what is all about, and how can we use them to promote culture as well as cultural heritage in general. So, social networking are the web pages or platforms that we allow people of similar interest to come together and share information, photos, and also videos. For example, we have things like Facebook, WhatsApp, MySpace, Ablo, Instagram, to just mention few common ones. So how basically we can use this platform or social networks in promoting cultural heritage? Before I go to the link between these two, let me take you a little bit on cultural volunteerism. This is all about people who are promoting culture willingly, and the law they take to spread information about arts, culture, sports in general. So, in this era of internet and social media, we have what we call normally popular culture. Popular culture is is culture which goes worldwide. Like currently, we are from different parts. For example, I from Africa, and here we have people from Europe, Asia, and other part of continent. So popular culture is a culture which is becoming culture for everyone. Like currently here in Africa, which are also done in Asia and other part of the country. So this widely accessible and common share aspects of culture consumed by all acts or classes. This is what we call popular culture. So because of the social media and internet in general, we the country are doing. So typically, to better appreciate what media can do in promoting culture, we have two important things we have to consider. First of all, network and culture volunteer, we have to consider two significant areas of scholarship, which are social media or social networking. They have multiple dimension and dynamic nature of network characteristics. I think so. When using social media, we reach the group of people or like at once. That's to say multiple dimension. So social media or social networking, it helps us reach group number of people at once. For example, when we use hard copies or when we print a book, it can be harder to reach good number of people at once. But when we use social networking or social media as volunteers in promoting culture, we can reach a good number of people at once. If you use Facebook, if you use Twitter, if you use Instagram in promoting culture, we can reach people Israel and across the world. By doing so, we're promoting culture, our culture or culture of other parts of the country. For example, here we can easily understand what people in Russia do, what people in Russia, what's history about Russia, what's beauty or nature about Russia, just through celebrating. Another thing, like we change information, we add some things and reach good number of people at once. So another point is social networking is intellectual education and social networks. Like social networking, we interact, unlike old ways of doing things, like maybe hard books. While in social networking, when you share ideas or when you share history, when you share nature, people, they do interact, they do discuss. Sometimes you change some things. When you're alone, you be collected. When you share false information, some people who have information, they can help you and collect you. So in this social networking, we network resources or capital that may provide greater access to volunteerism opportunity or facilitate taking advantage of opportunity. So in social networking, we as volunteers of culture or who are promoting culture, we take advantage and we use this advantage about to add on that, we also focus on structure and individual person networking. Emphasize for main dimension. Okay, so on social networking, we have 4 main dimensions which help us in facilitating what we are doing or what we want to do. For example, first of all, we have size. In social networking, in transforming information, we have large size of people or large number which can reach at once. As I said already, when using books, it's hard
в привлечении максимального количества людей. К сожалению, сейчас нет звука от спикера.
Sorry, I lost the sound a little bit. Okay, so I was saying, when using social networking or social media platform in transforming information, we reach large number of people at once, unlike other methods, and also contact frequently. Like when using social networking, the contact is there frequently. You can even contact at any time, unlike other ways. You send information, you share when they have question, they ask, you edit, and you keep interacting each other in this way of sending information, particularly cultural information and geographical proximity. With social networking, the globe is becoming closer, becoming a village whereby people can be discussing things with people who are away. For example, here we are communicating here. You are in Russia, and I'm in Africa, and some people they are in Asia, Europe are also taking part in this program. So it's becoming global. So with social networking, you can send information easily because the world geographically is becoming proximity. We are near. in, in physical, we are far apart, but with social networking, it becomes easier and we becoming closer to each other. And composition, this other or element which we use in social networking, which is composition. Social networking, it helps us to compose or to share messages which are readable and well composed, because it also has some features. For example, when you are sending, for example, a website, you have some application which help us to edit or to compose our messages to depict exactly what we want to share. So the nature of social networking in volunteerism, because it gives us opportunity, it gives us law, or gives us space which can easily share what we want to share. And to add on that, I'll share my screen to
что-то, где могут поделиться информацией, где могут заинтересовать людей, которые еще не определились, допустим, с тем, в какой сфере они хотели бы работать. Я сейчас попытаюсь продемонстрировать свой экран.
Огромное вам спасибо. Ждем демонстрации экрана, если это возможно. Хотела бы задать вам пару вопросов, потому что совсем мало времени осталось до конца секции. Пока грузится экран, хочу спросить. Скажите, у вас есть свой журнал. О чем он? Видимо, у нас есть небольшие технические неполадки. Надеюсь, вы меня слышите.
Yeah, I just want to share my screen so that I can.
We can't see your screen, probably because of the problems with the internet. If you have a presentation or materials, we can distribute them to our participants to look at them. If you can you please tell us in a few words what your presentation was about? We have just a couple of minutes before the next speaker. Can you please tell what you do with in your magazine? Can you please give us more details about your magazine? It seems like Ernest is having technical problems with the internet. Well, probably he will be able to join us later on, following the next expert. And our next expert is Punta Ali, expert of the special magazine, and he will share with us the practices of his country. Alina, while our experts are addressing their or connecting or addressing their connection issues, I would like to do some stock taking. Of course, cultural volunteers interact with each other, with one another, and there are a lot of practices in the sphere of culture that work together. For example, there is not every cultural institution that can afford a press service department, especially if that institution is small. Such institutions cannot afford running online contents on online platforms. And I see Alina is with us, and I hope you have a good connection. I see that there are technical issues. Please change to Russian in your settings and switch off the original sound. Then we will be able to hear you. Unfortunately, we still can't hear you. While Alina is connecting, yeah, we actually can see you online. That what remains for us is to actually hear you. Let me carry on with our discussions of cultural institutions. There is a flagship project called the Culture of Russia. That's a project where people can get training how you can work with social networks, and that's a unique project, a flagship project that is scaled, is rolled out in 5 regions of Russia. It is operational. If you would like to get training in that functionality, you can write to us or to the leader of the flagship project, and we will communicate with you and tell you how you can use the franchise and open your branch in your region. Colleagues, can you hear me? Let us check the sound once more. Now we can hear you, and that's a good thing. Hello, colleagues. My name is Alina. I'm representing the Association of Volunteer Centers, and I would like to tell you today about such a brilliant project as the Journal. This is a module that tells you about the good deeds in volunteership and the development of volunteership and active civic position. Our portal can be used by absolutely everyone, all categories of people, and it is very user-friendly. I will tell you why you might be interested to join and what else our portal can be interesting to you with. We publish content about the development of volunteership and charity, and our headquarters every week publishes information on new campaigns, charity projects, various perks you can get from the organizers from your participation. There can be commercial organizations that will support you in developing your blogs. We also publish information about grants that are provided by charity funds. So we have a lot of information flow coming to you on a daily basis, actually, which can be useful to you. We also post links to relevant vacancies, and you can find projects that you can work as volunteers. If you, for example, are interested in helping animals, you can find information about these projects in this area. You will be able to find vacancies and within projects devoted to saving animals. You can also access the broad.rf or RU platform because we're integrated in with them. Our core difference from the majority of mass media is that the majority of users on our portal can become authors of informational articles, essays, and so on and so forth. Whether you're an independent volunteer or an organization, you can publish your news. We have a whole and comprehensive instructions on how to publish news, on various life hacks, news on how to promote your blogs. You can download videos and you will become authors. Your materials will be published on the website automatically. In this way, you will get many people to hear your information.
Daily, we have a lot of people writing about their volunteering, about their good deeds, and also charity funds. We have commercial organizations coming to us who initiate different volunteering and environment-related initiatives. And recently, Russian retailer La Moda contacted us, and in our portal, they are publishing information on how they are manufacturing environment-friendly products. Ozon came, so we have a lot of users who are reading these materials daily. They repost and so on, and they help promoting social initiatives. And we must say that we don't publish anything, so it's important that your article looks nice. But for that, we have a whole panel of instruments to highlight the headers, then separate the paragraphs, and we have a special manual for that. And if you contact our tech support, then we send it, or in a database section on the portal. And there you'll be able to find all the information, starting from how to register or sign up and ending with how you promote your paper or your article. Mainly, the users are volunteers, so that's why it's very important to understand the final objective. And the objective of every volunteer is to find some sphere where his or her skills can be used and applied and to make a difference. So we know this journey, and when you enter, you select the sphere you're interested in, and you can look for the events. And eventually, you find the event and become a volunteer. And the slogan, get inspired, read, and take part. So we'll be very happy to see you in our portal. And for you to share your stories on the volunteering. And by the way, now I'm in Sochi Aquadrome, and we have Formula One there. And we decided to create a new social project that's mainly published in Instagram. It's called Volunteer Diary, where I show how volunteering is working from the inside. And our first pilot is about event-related volunteering. I'm doing backstage for Formula One, and I tell how you work in this video, how you become an event-related volunteer. And social media just blasted. People are very admiring, and we have a lot of new users. We have around 50% of people who we had before. Another 50% of people who we had in subscribers before that came. So now we are trying to focus on Instagram, and there will be interviews with volunteers coming about how they came to become volunteers. We have young people and silver volunteers, and have a lot of volunteers here, and they are working at the same level with the young people, and they really charge us with energy. So I invite you together with us to read, to get involved, and so on.
Дорогие друзья, Алина, спасибо тебе большое. Алин, маленький вопрос, буквально пару минут.
Thank you very much, Alina. Just a short question.
Скажи, пожалуйста, ты из Республики Беларусь. Скажи.
You are from Belarus, right? So tell us, what kind of volunteering projects you have there, maybe in media? Yeah, I'll try to reply to it. Yeah, I'm from Belarus, and back home I was working in volunteering, and I can tell you that Belarus is just on the way of creating a strong volunteering base, and it's following the scenario of Russian volunteers when the main volunteering force appearing after the Olympics in Sochi. Same thing is happening in Belarus. Volunteers get more and more involved, and it all started just several years ago after the after hosting second European Games. They were not just volunteering in those games, but they were taking part in different test events that were taking place before those games. And after it was over, Belarus Republican Volunteering Center has been created that's trying to be active, and it's making it happen. They have started their Instagram, and daily they publish information on different volunteering activities, how to help and so on. And a lot of volunteers have submitted their applications for We Are Together project, and hopefully we'll find ourselves at the next level soon. Thank you very much. And I'm sure there will be even more subscribers coming. And we are now live, but the recorded sessions will be available at any time. And thank you for being able to get connected. It's a huge event. It's Formula One, and good luck with your volunteering. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, I'm connected now. Yeah, so now I want to explain more on our magazine, which is called Malawi Heritage Magazine. Malawi Heritage Magazine is a magazine which promotes culture, history, and about beauty nature of Malawi and Africa in general. People who contribute now are all volunteers. They like their stories. They send us their pictures about nature, history, and culture and Africa. So we at our office we edit the magazine, we edit the stories, we edit the articles, we select the best stories to feature in our magazine. We share the magazine for free just to promote culture, history, and nature of Malawi and Africa in general. We share the magazine through Facebook. We have our Facebook pages. We have a website. We have Instagram page. We have Twitter, whereby people they access the magazine, they read articles, and in the near future we are planning to start considering heritage, culture heritage about the whole world, whereby we have stories about nature, culture from different parts of the world, and spread news of culture across the countries. Yeah, so basically that's all about our magazine, which we aim at promoting culture and history currently for Africa in general, and particularly for Malawi, which we are based in.
Занимаемся всем этим для Малави и для Африки. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's a very important experience for our country too, and I'm sure that we'll be able to talk to you more, and we are really looking forward to seeing your magazine, and I'm sure that'll be a great experience and a great thing to show our guys. And I'm sure that our volunteers and media people will be happy to make their input and publish their articles in your magazine. Thank you very much for your time and for your presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just sorry for the problem of network.
And dear friends, we are moving on to our next session. Today we are finishing with our volunteer camp, and for those 5 days the participants were working on the concept of developing international collaboration in the sphere of culture. It's a concept including 9 blocks. It's about heritage, about finance, it's about community, how to work in the social media. And today the guys will be presenting what they've been doing. Stay with us, get connected, and we'll meet with you in 5 to 7 minutes time, and we'll start talking about what our participants were doing online. So we managed to get together and come up with something really cool.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель Рэй Брэдбери. Современные учреждения культуры, библиотеки, музеи, театры – не просто места, где можно прикоснуться к прекрасному. Они помогают в саморазвитии и образовании. И для создания новых форматов и событий им нередко бывает нужна наша с вами помощь.
Волонтеры нужны для того, чтобы делать то, что мы не можем делать без них. В частности, нам волонтеры помогают быть больше, чем музей.
Для многих волонтерство открывает новые возможности. Человек думает, а что такое библиотека? А что такое музей? Это пыльные книги, это пыльные экспонаты. Но когда приходит сюда в качестве волонтера, он видит совсем другую картину. Он понимает, что именно здесь можно реализовать свои интересы.
Программа «Волонтеры культуры» создает и развивает добровольческое движение в самых разных уголках страны, как в столице, так и в регионах, как в больших городах, так и в сельских поселениях. Мы оказываем всестороннюю поддержку волонтерскому сообществу. С нашей помощью добровольцы могут реализовать свой потенциал и получить новые компетенции.
Библиотеки, как и любая культурная институция, сегодня, конечно, не могут жить и обходиться без участия жизни волонтеров и их вклада. И наша библиотека номер 119, библиотека времени, не исключение. Я вообще считаю, что волонтеры — это в первую очередь друзья, люди вовлеченные, которые разделяют ценности библиотеки.
Библиодобровольцы — это люди, которые помогают библиотекам практически во всех вопросах, которые возникают. Без них невозможно представить деятельность библиотек.
Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Вы сможете не только помогать любимому музею или библиотеке, но и всесторонне развиваться. Новые знания и практический опыт помогают добровольцам в достижении поставленных целей. Главное – менять к лучшему жизнь вокруг. Помощь добровольцев нужна учреждениям культуры в любом городе. Ждем вас!
В значит волонтеры.
Почти в каждом городе есть старинные здания, которые определяют его лицо. Делают город отличающимся, необычным. Во многих таких зданиях сегодня располагаются музеи. Сюда приходят туристы, здесь происходят культурные мероприятия. Но многие объекты культурного наследия нуждаются в реставрации, ремонте, поддержке. Хотели бы что-то сделать для этих зданий, помочь в их восстановлении? Присоединяйтесь к программе «Волонтеры культуры». Программа поддерживает добровольческое движение, помогает беречь культурное наследие и исторический облик наших городов. Став участником, вы научитесь новому, поставите перед собой интересные, необычные цели, сможете реализовать собственные идеи и проекты, собрать свою команду для того, чтобы реальными делами помогать сохранению истории и развитию культуры.
Я думаю, что волонтерское движение – это вообще очень важный факт нашей жизни, вот современной. Волонтеры очень нужны, и мы все очень нуждаемся в них.
Принять участие в программе «Волонтеры культуры» может каждый. Помогайте сохранять свои города и их культурное наследие. Возраст не важен. Получить нужные умения и внести свой вклад могут все. Участвуйте в программе «Волонтеры культуры».
Я уже записался. Увидимся.
Я получил образование в библиотеке совершенно бесплатно, отмечал знаменитый писатель.